Hi, my name is Sam Led, and welcome to The Fearless Now. This is for you in the nosebleed seats if you're looking for an easier way to approach anxiety, stress, and unhealthy habits from the inside out. There's no techniques and no strategies, so sit back, relax, and let me be your peace of mind Uber driver here on The Fearless Now. Welcome to episode number 4 of The Fearless Now. My name is Sam Led. I'm a transformational coach, and this podcast is for you in the nosebleed seats, and it is a great honor to be here for you guys. Today's episode is about metaphors for our sped-up thinking and how metaphors really work, how metaphors really are essentially a great way to describe when we are caught up in this machinery we call thinking, made up by this supercomputer that is just running programs and innocently trying to keep us safe, but doesn't know the difference between turbulence on an airplane and being chased by a saber-toothed tiger sometimes. And everyone's experience is different. Everyone has a different reality that they live in that's created by this supercomputer. And when we see how the nature of thinking works, the nature of our mind and how it works from the inside out, that our mind erroneously latches onto our world and experience outside of us, and we think it's truth when the world outside of us is just happening. It's happening in real time. And it's like putting on the virtual reality goggles on your head. I think I forgot the word for it, but those VR glasses that puts you into a different reality. That's kind of what our mind does. And the mind is there to inform us of the world outside of us. And there's nothing wrong with any of it. But when we're sped up and we're feeling stuck or anxious, or we have all these feelings of foreboding or depression or whatever it is in the moment that we all experience, it feels real and it feels very scary. And those feelings are okay. All of it's okay. Even if it's doesn't feel okay when London bridges are falling down. And one great metaphor that I'm borrowing from a wonderful coach, thought leader, I'm going to throw his name out there. I use him a lot. He knows that we all use his stuff because he's so brilliant, Michael Neal. He talks about when we're caught up in turbulence and a thought storm, the modern marvels of air travel in this world. Not now, because a lot of us aren't flying because of what's going on in the world with the pandemic. But when we used to fly a lot, all of us experience that unpleasant feeling of turbulence on an airplane, the plane's bumping around, and none of us like it unless you have a couple drinks in you or you're on some really powerful sedative. We're sitting on the plane and there's nothing we can do about it. We can't control turbulence. We can't control the natural undulations of the current of air that's flying in this liquid or this fluid that we call the atmosphere that we're surrounded by when we're at 29, 30,000 feet in the stratosphere. And if you look around in the airplane, when you're on an aircraft, next time you're in an airplane, look around to see people that get really frightened from turbulence or grip their armrest really tightly and just watch it for a second. It may make you feel more anxious if just like watching it. And then wait 10 minutes or 5 minutes until the captain finds a more suitable cruising altitude. And the captain always does, even if you're flying near a thunderstorm or you're flying in clear air turbulence, maybe you're flying over mountains and there's a lot of turbulence. Watch that anxious person caught up in an anxious thinking about, oh my God, I'm losing control. The plane's losing control. And that's what their mind in that moment is telling them. Watch their mind settle. Watch them see their relief when the plane settles down and the turbulence disappears and all is well. And this modern marvel, this modern technological marvel we call modern air travel, and how incredibly amazing it is to be sitting in a seat at 29, 30,000 feet, flying in the stratosphere at 500 miles an hour. Well, just thinking of that makes me anxious a little. But flying in this seat at 30,000 feet with a bunch of other fellow strangers, watching the people next to you relax after the turbulence disappears. And that's a great metaphor for our thinking. That at any moment we fall out of thinking and that we attach a story to our thinking because all we have is our thoughts that connect to our feelings, that inform us of what's going on. But perhaps we're looking at it the wrong way. Perhaps the turbulence is just like turbulence at 30,000 feet. It's just moving through us. It's an energy moving through us. That at any moment, the plane flies out of the clouds and finds clear air, and the sun is out, and people are looking out the window and smiling and seeing the topography below them, and just how expansive that feels in the moment when things quiet down, when things feel peaceful, when things feel right. That's the same thing with our thought and thinking. I have a PhD in dealing with anxiety and an honorary doctorate. It doesn't get me anywhere, but I have an honorary doctorate in anxiety. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you too. I've placed a lot of emphasis, a lot of focus on my own frailties, or they're not frailties. Actually, they're just part of the human experience. And we look at it as a frailty, like see where my mind went there is that I'm like, yeah, that's a frailty. There's something wrong with me. I need to fix it. Well, maybe you don't have to fix it. Well, maybe that it's pointing to just our thinking in the moment, that it's not wrong. That maybe the obstacles in your life that are causing panic and anxiety, and I know it's easier said than done. What do I know? I'm just a coach with a lot of life experience and a lot of training and degrees, but none of that matters because the experience of anxiety, the experience of panic, the experience of low mood and depressed thinking and insecurity is very real to a lot of us in the moment. And today, I was feeling really anxious. I was feeling really out of control in my mind, but then it just settled out of nowhere. I went outside, had a conversation with a friend. I ate some fresh fruit. I did some work in my anxiety, in my low mood that feels really crappy. But then I forgot about it. What does that say about the nature of human thinking? The trap a lot of us get into is that when we see these things happen all the time, when we feel anxious all the time, that it's a big deal. Like we need to fix it or change it. That this story, our mind is telling us that, oh, you need to fix this. Our ego is concocting, it's creating. Mind's just going to do that sometimes. That we don't have to believe every thought that comes into our head is truth. That we don't have to grab hold of the armrests on the airplane when the turbulence is occurring. Now, sometimes armrests are really great. And if that's what gets you through a moment of turbulence, there's nothing wrong with that either. But I think it's the pressure we put on ourselves. And when we see it, when we notice that this thinking is not really us, it's just thinking. I had a client a couple years ago that was in recovery. I was working with him at a inpatient drug treatment center. Really nice young man, very smart, dropped out of law school. And he dropped out of law school because his anxiety about him staying sober was so real to him that he actually relapsed because he thought the anxiety was taking over his life. And then when I asked him, I said, okay, right now, at this moment, how anxious do you feel? Or the other day when you were just spending time with the other folks, fellow patients at the facility, were there moments when you didn't feel anxious? No, that's who you are. That's your default state. That's your true nature. And we have glimpses of it every single day. We have glimpses of it every single moment. But the powerful feelings that are associated with anxiety or with insecurity or with low mood or are so powerful that at times we get so wrapped up in it, it feels like it's never going to end. I remember the other day I had I woke up in the middle of the night. I couldn't breathe. I felt so anxious. And my mind was creating a story around, oh yeah, it's because of, and fill in the blank. Oh yeah, it's because of fill in the blank. Yeah, but this is happening, so this is why. And then I felt alone. I felt out of control. I couldn't breathe. At that moment, My panic and anxiety was getting the best of me. I was really starting to believe that the gears of thinking that I was experiencing in that moment were actually true, were actually my truth, that this is something that is going to haunt me for the rest of my life. And then I saw within 10 minutes or so, after just taking some breaths, I think I called somebody or texted somebody in the middle of the night. And that wasn't even necessary, because whether we do that or not, we fall out of it and back to the present moment. But it's so powerfully uncomfortable, we want to try to medicate ourselves or try to fix it. And then it becomes, we start believing that that's who we are. We're an anxious person that is incapable of being successful in the world, or incapable of finding solutions to some of the problems in the outside world that we have, or incapable of having relationships. And I got to tell you, that's complete bullshit. And sometimes letting go of the controls and seeing your inner resilience take hold is just enough. Letting go of the controls doesn't mean giving up on life, doesn't mean giving up on your path, or giving up on a relationship, or giving up on anything. It means you're trying to find a better cruising altitude. You're trying to find a better flight path. You're trying to find some clearer skies, changing the flight path a little bit, which means really relaxing into it. As difficult as that may sound for some of you that are really struggling right now in the moment, when you break it down, you break down life into moments. It's so powerful because you break down, it's kind of like when you download an app on your phone, or you delete an app on the phone, it takes a couple moments for that app to download, or the program to delete off of your phone. Or after that moment, your phone readjusts itself and then deletes some of the space that was being occupied by the program or the app. That's the same thing with the mind. If you see, without changing anything, you see all that turbulence that is occurring in the moment, just seeing it as a thought program, that we are more scared of being scared of that thought program called anxiety or fear or low mood than the actual experience itself. And you can see it more, the less it becomes a big deal, the less it becomes so powerful and so overwhelming in your life. The noise in your mind, we sometimes need an antidepressant. We sometimes need something to calm it down temporarily. But once we understand how the mind works, that you are divinely okay underneath all that thought, underneath all that insecure thinking, underneath all that depression, something happens. Those moments become less important. And that's how I'm able to get on an airplane now and not be so anxious. I have moments that I'm anxious on an airplane, but doesn't mean that I'm an anxious person. Doesn't mean that I can't handle it. Doesn't mean that I'm incapable of going from A to B. The same thing with me driving on the freeway. Yeah, it's still difficult sometimes. I still have moments. Sometimes I can't drive long distances. Sometimes I'm incapacitated. But does that mean that that's the sum total of my experience of being human, of being a person, of being a man, of being Sam? I hope not. I don't think it is. So next time when you're on that, because you're the airplane, you're piloting that airplane and you're at 29,000 feet and there's a whole load of turbulence and you're grabbing the handrest, like you're going to break it off. Actually, I did break off a handrest once 30 years ago when I was a teenager flying back from Colorado to South Florida. Just know that's okay. You're going to settle. The plane's going to settle. And you are the plane. Hope this has been helpful. Hope you've enjoyed this podcast. You can go to my website, www.samledconsulting.com, and click on that link. And if you like this podcast, if you want this podcast to be seen more, please share it with your friends, comment, and subscribe. You can do that on all the podcast platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon. My goodness, it's everywhere now. But if you find this helpful and you get that feel-good feeling, that easygoing feeling more when you listen to my voice, when you see more from these episodes, please like and subscribe and tell your friends. And please comment as well. I'll see you next week for episode number 5 of The Fearless Now.